All right, here we are. Let's welcome to another apple disease management season in New York 2025. Kind of looks a little bit like the picture, except it's not actually in bloom. But it is dark, cloudy, overcast, and constant banding of snow and a little bit of sun, then more snow. And sun, snow, and it's really not getting, it's not sticking, it's not doing anything else. But let's talk about where we are in the apple season. It's March 25th. Some states probably already in green tip, and everyone else is just sort of accelerating it to it, but at least it's been cold, and we'll talk about where we are today. All right, we should be in around here, 2025, focusing on sort of our basic overview fungal disease management, and where we are at the stage is now as using the little laser pointer right here, and the dormant to silver tip to approaching green tip stage, meaning if you can get the tractor in, it's still a good time to do some sweeping, do some urea, and then we'll be moving into what I like to refer to as copper season. And this is a plan that includes the protectant multi-site fungicides, Captan Mancozeb, or the mixture of Captazeb, sulfur, and some of the others. But at the same time, even if you were going for an alternative plan, which I've named Alt Plan, or we call it the No Mancozeb Captan Plan, you'd still be doing the same thing, sanitation and copper sprays. And this is about as best we are now. I don't think, even if there was a big period, we would use one of our Anopolimidine, Vanguard, Scala at this time, or Dodine. Probably going to see the forecast and we'll make a decision once we get into the real meat and potatoes. Where we are is now, fall or prior spring, putting out urea at 40 pounds per 100 in Geneva. Hasn't rained enough, and I think you could definitely drive and put stuff out, or you can do dolomitic lime at about 2.5 tons an acre. And as I mentioned before, this is the time for the delayed dormant copper sort of silver tip application, and maybe keep going. And at this point, we really recommend those thick, stickier, covering, high metallic copper equivalent type. I recommend the lower MCE, which is what metallic copper equivalent is what that stands for, coppers during the season to avoid any phytotox. But at this point, we don't have a lot of sensitive tissues. Let's go out there, let's put on a copper that coats, is heavy, and has a high percent, and is very active. Now, as we move into the green tip half-inch green around the state, I still think you're going to be fairly safe with a 15% MCE. It's not getting too hot, not getting too rainy. Well, the snow has picked up again outside. And now if we move into the later next week, and we'll start looking at the forecasts in a moment, if you do see an ejection of 15% ascospore or greater, this is what I'm going to recommend, an anilinoperimidine fungicide. Scala or Vanguard, save your Inspire Super for a little bit later, or we go Dodine Sillet. They work really well on apple scab. The other diseases, not so much, not going to be effective on, but the other diseases aren't out now, so let's use these materials at this point. And at this point, we're going to switch gears, and we're going to take a look at the forecast. I'm going to end this talk, move that out of the way, and we're going to go right into NUA and start thinking about what we would like to do. All right, here we are. Let's take a look at some locations. I'm just getting this browser ready all the way. And yeah, if you're at NUA home, nua.cornell.edu, and you can use this on your phone, your apps. It is resized a little strangely on the phone. It works fine. I'll show you a couple things. You go straight to the IPM forecasts, and we're going to be looking at apple scab today. This thing will show up as a 3 horizontal dashed line, and it won't show up immediately on your phone. Click it to make it show up and do the pop-up, and you can see all the different things. Right now, you're just looking at March 26th, no weather stations picked because I'm not signed in. If you want to look at a lot of weather stations, don't sign in. If you want to see specific ones, sign in, make an account, and add them. It's not that tricky. So we're going to start this year. We'll start in Niagara and see how we're going, and then we'll move our way across the state. Let's take a look at Appleton, one of my favorite places to look at. Appleton. Let's go Appleton North. We're going right up along the state. Right now, things look pretty good. It says we're about 25 degree days from green tip. And one of the things I want to bring up the most is sometimes your crop may be green. And if it's green, it can still be infected. And can ascospores mature prior to green tip as predicted by the NUA model? Absolutely. They're developing different. They are becoming more adapted to our local varieties. Probably not so much more gala than 50% green tip on Macintosh, which is what this is actually referring to right here. So as you see it, think about mature ascospores being a little present about 10 to 14 days prior. So in this case of Appleton North, I'm just going to go ahead and take a look. It says everything is good. Show stuff, management guide. I'm going to go ahead and put our green tip as being about the 17th in this particular instance. Now, was it actually the 17th? And had we had enough weather, we would be getting about 3% maturity, not a lot of ejection, 3% discharge. It's not been that rainy. It's been very cold. Let's take a look. Of course, it is predicting something small. So if you actually had green tissue, you'd put something out, but if your blocks are still silver or not, I'd let this one go and really not worry about it. If you are doing your delayed dormant copper, it's going to take this 28th thing coming up and do just nicely with it. Now let's move a little bit more inland and see if the situation changed. We're going to use this earlier date. Now when I get into the crux of the season, I'm going to swap it forward about 10 days or back in line, and we'll see where we are. Let's go ahead and take a look at Williamson area. Have a basic Williamson. Well, I guess we're just gonna go DeMarie. Why not? They're not there yet either, but let's just pretend that they have some early varieties. We're going to pop over to the 17th. What are we looking at? Same type of thing. When do you know something's coming up? This tells me that it's the 25th today, that, I don't know, by the weekend, if things are silver and there's potential, this is a good time to get that copper out, because it looks like we're going to have some rain for the weekend. Very interesting stuff. Let's move into the Finger Lakes, see how we're doing in the old Finger Lakes region, Interlaken area acres. So let's try that one. How are we doing? Same sort of story. It says we're warm enough to actually have green tip on Macintosh 15%. You're a little bit further south towards the Ithaca region. Not a bad area to be in. Real low ejections though. So what this tells me is don't freak out. Just keep the copper on. Don't make any emergency say. Just make sure things are covered if you have open tissue. It's snowing now. What's it say it's going to be in the future? It's going to warm up in the 50s. Apple Scab loves 50s. So something to think about as we go into it. Let's move from there, and I am going to go first. We're going to go up Lake Champlain area, Adirondacks. I'm going to type in cheesy. Let's see if they say anything interesting. It says so cold it's insane. Let's just pretend that you've planted the most earlier bud breaking variety out there. Let's take a look. I'm going to go ahead and reset it. It's not even enough with the wetness and stuff like that. One thing I'm going to do typically in the area, since I'm in the Chazy region, let's open the map. Let's take a peek around. Make sure, as you're looking around at your station, check some of the others around in the area. I always recommend. We're at Chazy. I want to go ahead and zoom in a little bit. Let's drop in, let's put in Plattsburgh, see what they say. Look closer down there to the old river. Now I'm going to go ahead and set this thing out. You see, this is quite some time. Yeah, still not going to be a lot of rain predicted in there. Average temperature for wet hours is minus 67 in this case. Well, something's not working well, but at least the forecast for the future is moving right along in this particular instance. If your station is showing something wild, it's worth a little chat to the old Zendesk. Let's see if it even tells you how to get there from this page. Let's go to the bottom. Nope, not there. You go to the NUA page and you can find the little link to if you have help right there. Click that NUA help button. Okay, I'm going to go back to Chazy and make sure it was just this station. Well, if you see your station showing up weird, let's just put that on there and see what we got. Chazy Orchards. I'm going to set my date back. I want to see if we see some crazy temps. No. It must be that station's just coming online, or it may have an issue that are just overcoming. All right, let's pop down into the Capital District. I always like Voorheesville. Mesonet. Let's see what we got. What's happening? All right, it still says Voorheesville's about 21 days from 50%, but you could be anything. Let's see what the temperatures start looking like as we head east. A lot of the Finger Lakes and the Niagara region along that lower area of New York, they are predicting some rain. I still don't think this is cause for alarm. What I think this is just make sure you're in that copper and your green tip and approaching maybe if you're into the half-inch green. It says they're not quite there yet. And then Hudson Valley, let's try Walden. It's a nice station, often works. Let's take a look and see what we got. Say they're in green. It's interesting how a lot of our green tips are all hovering right around the same time. I think with these changes in climatic conditions, we're all getting compressed. I was first very alarmed when I started doing a collaborative trial up in Vermont with my friend Terry at UVM, or we were hitting pink at the same time as Geneva. Now I'm starting to see our green tip dates kind of homogenize. We'll see what it looks like when we get to Long Island. So let's go back. I'm going to pick 10 days back from this green tip data. They're there. Anything to be concerned about? No, let's look at this 13th. Let's just take a look. It says they're kind of scraping through one right now, but they're looking okay for the weekend. I'm going to go ahead and peek around some of the other places. Let's do a different one. Let's do the Highland, a classic place to look at. Not picking up that last one. I'm going to set the clock back a bit and say a little earlier. Still not picking up something there. There might be a microclimate event going on at Walden. Let's take a look at Campbell Hall. I always like to look at a couple. Looking pretty good. I suspect whatever creep through on the 23rd and 24th for Walden is an isolated event, but likely they got the silver tip copper. If the tissue's still relatively dormant, you can keep going with it. And things aren't really maturing that much. We're just right at the crux of green tip. It's just now happening in eastern New York. Let's end a little bit with some Riverhead fun. Let's see what's happening in Riverhead other than good times. Lyrac is down. We're going to have to go to the other fork, and then I'm going to fish around and look for another station. I think they're trying to get that station back up and going. We'll look around right now. Interestingly, same type on the North Fork as we'll go to Watermill next, and we'll check that out on the South Fork. Going to move that thing back a bit. They're really approaching. They have just like the Walden area might be on the same latitude. Must have been a little storm system went through, and a little bit of leaf wetness and an infection. Not a lot of ejection at that time, so things were probably good. Just keep that copper tissue going. And it looks like you don't need to rush out and do anything over the weekend. You can kind of look into the forecast later this week. I'll do this again probably on Sunday or Monday, and we can see what the weekly forecast look like. Clearly, we don't have to worry about fire blight at this point. And yeah, that includes, let's take a look at Watermill just to see if we see anything different down there. I'm going to reset that green tip to account for maybe early maturing ascospores. We see still at about 3 and 4%. Yep, same type of area on just on the South Fork, way out there beyond the Hamptons. It's coming around. Looking at a little bit of infection event. It's probably, might be approaching an inch. If the next one is predicted for later in the week, it might be time for that second copper spray if the tissue hasn't advanced too much. Well, and that's it for this week. We'll sign off. I'll put up a couple other videos on stuff about fungicides and maybe starting off with the basics of early apple scab management. And we'll go from there. All right. See you on Sunday.